My father didn't hesitate. He sent a single icy text that shattered 32 years of history. I disown you. Talk to my lawyer. I remember the light above my Denver kitchen flickering as if even the room felt the blow. My phone vibrated once in my hand, then went completely still. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was loaded, like the air before a thunderstorm. No explanation. No hesitation. Just exile delivered in a single sentence. I stood there for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to type 1,000 things. Part of me wanted to call him, to beg, to ask what I'd done wrong. But instead, I typed one word back, steady and calm, okay. Not yes. Not why. Just okay. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't collapse against the counter like I probably should have. Instead, I placed the phone down with a soft click, opened my laptop, and made one quiet decision. A decision that would destroy every lie they'd built over the last 32 years. You know, I've always believed kitchens hold the truth of a home. The one I grew up in, back in Glendale, always smelled like burnt coffee and stress. My father, Roger, liked things controlled. Lights dim. Voices low. Emotions silent. My stepmother, Deborah, preferred everything spotless on the surface while quiet tension simmered underneath like a pot about to boil over. And Chad, my older brother, walked through that house like he owned every square inch of it. Me? I learned early how to take up as little space as possible. People say birth order shapes you. Maybe it does. But in my family, it wasn't about the order, it was about the roles. Chad was the golden child, the living proof that Roger had raised a winner. I was the scapegoat, the buffer, the one who kept the chaos contained so everyone else could pretend we were normal. If Chad messed up, I cleaned it. If a bill was missed, I paid it. If Roger raised his voice, it was always somehow my fault. Always. By the time I left for college, I thought distance would fix something. It didn't. If anything, it made me more useful. I became the daughter who sent money home, the responsible one, the one who somehow always had her life together enough to patch the holes in theirs. For years ago, Roger called me crying. Crying. In my entire life, I had never seen him cry. His voice cracked over the phone, shaking with what sounded like genuine desperation. He said the house was days from foreclosure. He said Chad had let him down, though he never explained how. He said Deborah was sick with worry. He told me I was his last hope, the only child he could truly count on. Those words held me hostage. I agreed to help. Just until I get back on my feet, he said. Just until. I started paying the monthly mortgage. Then the utilities. Then small emergencies that somehow appeared only when I got paid. I rationalized every dollar as the cost of keeping peace. My job as an auditor made the irony painful. I could balance other people's books perfectly, but I couldn't seem to balance my own family. Still, I tried. Every holiday dinner felt like a performance. Smiles too wide. Questions too pointed. Praise aimed only at Chad. Deborah would brag about his new job or his new car, then turn to me with this soft, patronizing smile and say, "Lauren just likes working quietly." Nothing flashy. As if competence was a flaw. As if being reliable was something to apologize for. But something changed the week before the text. The air around my father grew sharp, like he was hiding something. Chad kept avoiding eye contact. Deborah acted jittery, flinching at every notification on her phone. The cracks were forming, spreading like ice on a windshield. I could feel it but couldn't see it yet. And then, in the middle of an ordinary evening, I got a message from Uncle David. No explanation. Just a video. A video I wasn't supposed to see. What was on that video didn't just explain the text my father sent. It set the entire story on fire. The video thumbnail showed my family crowded around the dining table in Glendale, the same table I grew up sitting at. The worn oak surface. The chipped corner where Chad carved his initials when he was 12. I felt this strange pull in my chest before I even pressed play. The screen shook slightly. Uncle David must have been holding his phone casually, recording without much care. The room was too bright, Deborah's overhead chandelier casting a harsh white glow across everyone's faces. They all looked relaxed. Happy. Comfortable in the way people are when they believe they're among their own. I hit play. Roger's voice came first, low and gravelly and unmistakably pleased with himself. She's not a daughter, he said. She's a walking ATM. The room erupted in laughter. Real laughter, the kind that fills a home when people share a private joke. I froze, my thumb hovering over the screen. Deborah leaned forward, shaking her head like she was scolding someone, but her smile was wide. Roger, stop, she said through laughter. That girl works too hard for her own good. Let her feel useful. Let her feel useful. Chad chimed in next, his tone light, almost bored. Honestly, Dad, she's pathetic. You should hear how she talks at work, always trying to justify why she sends you money. It's embarrassing. The laughter swelled again. David snorted behind the camera. My stomach twisted, but the audio kept going, pulling me deeper into a truth I had spent years ignoring. Roger lifted his beer toward the camera like he was toasting the person filming. To my personal ATM, he said. Long may she pay. Someone clinked a glass. Someone else whistled. Someone said, cheers. I didn't realize my hand had gone numb until the phone nearly slipped from my fingers. It wasn't just the words. It was the ease. The comfort. The absolute certainty that I would never hear any of this because, in their minds, I was too desperate for belonging to ever walk away. I hit pause. The room around me felt colder, smaller, like the walls were closing in. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel sad. I felt awake. I replayed the video, this time watching their faces. The relaxed postures. The careless cruelty. The total lack of guilt. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a pattern, a system, a worldview that had existed long before I realized it. I set my phone down, blinking hard, trying to steady my breathing. I needed clarity. I needed air. I stepped out onto my apartment balcony. Denver's fall air was sharp against my skin, cold enough to sting. The city lights flickered like distant warnings. I leaned against the railing, the metal freezing beneath my palms, and let the truth settle in. Everything suddenly made sense. The strange tone Roger had recently taken with me. The guilt-laced comments from Deborah. The way Chad kept inventing new emergencies I had to pay for. They weren't struggling. They weren't grateful. They weren't trying. They were planning. And the worst part? They felt entitled to it. Like it was my job. Like I owed them. I walked back inside, grabbed my phone again, and hit play one more time. I needed the sting, the anger, the clarity. Halfway through the video, my phone buzzed with a new text. It was from Roger. Just one line, I disown you. Talk to my lawyer. My chest tightened. Not from pain this time, but from recognition. This wasn't punishment. They thought I was about to confront them. They thought they were cutting me off before I could disrupt their system. They thought they were in control. I stared at the text for a long moment. Then I typed the word that changed everything. Okay. Not yes. Not why. Just okay. A full stop. A closing door. And a promise. Because in that moment, standing alone in my apartment, watching the people I grew up with toast to my humiliation, I realized something I had never allowed myself to see. I wasn't part of their family. I was part of their budget. The strange thing about betrayal is how quiet the aftermath feels. No screaming. No dramatic collapse. Just a silence so clean it almost echoes. That was the silence in my apartment the night I typed okay. A silence I had never experienced growing up, because in my childhood home, silence was a weapon, a punishment, a way to force submission. But here it felt like control. I placed my phone down and opened my laptop. If Roger wanted everything through his lawyer, I would give him exactly that: distance, clarity, and a severing he would never mistake for a tantrum. The first tab I opened was my banking portal. The familiar blue and white dashboard loaded, a quiet hum in my chest matching the spinning wheel. When the numbers finally appeared, something inside me clicked into place. My professional training took over. This wasn't emotional anymore. It was procedural. Step 1, mortgage support. 4 years. 48 months. Every payment made on time, like clockwork. I hovered over the automatic transfer, my name listed as the sole payer, and clicked cancel. A small confirmation box popped up. Are you sure? I exhaled slowly. Yes, I whispered into my empty apartment. Step 2, utilities. I had been covering certain bills for their Glendale home for years. Electricity. Water. Even internet when Roger forgot. Click. 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 Everything canceled. Step 3, additional support payments. The emergency fund Deborah messaged me about once a month. The periodic payments Chad somehow always needed. The little things that added up to thousands. I stopped them all. Then step 4, documentation. If Roger wanted a war built on paperwork and formalities, I was fluent in that language. I opened a blank document titled simply Payments. No drama. No commentary. Just numbers. Dates. Amounts. Descriptions. Clean. Neat. Factual. The document grew line by line, filling with 4 years of financial sacrifice I had never once spoken aloud. Looking at it was like staring at an X-ray of a broken bone I never treated. My phone buzzed on the counter. A message from Chad: you better not be being dramatic right now. I didn't open it. Another buzz. Deborah, the mortgage is due tomorrow. Don't make this harder. Delete. Delete. They thought I was bluffing. They thought everything would snap back to normal once I calmed down. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't spiraling. I was done. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual. My apartment felt brighter, like someone had scrubbed the air clean. I made coffee, wrapped my hair into a neat ponytail, and sat down at my dining table with my laptop. I logged into their mortgage portal again, out of habit, mostly. Payment failed. A small red banner blinked across the top of the screen. Account past due. My heart didn't race. I didn't panic. Instead, I felt something profound. Relief. It was the first visible crack in the system they had built on my shoulders. By afternoon, the ripple effects widened. A flood of emails hit my inbox from services tied to my financial support. Payment unsuccessful. Card declined. Account inactive. Every notification felt like a string snapping loose from my spine. Around 5, Chad called. I watched his name light up the screen, glowing with entitlement. I let it ring until it stopped. 10 seconds later, a voicemail. Pick up. This isn't funny. I deleted it without listening further. That night, I sat on my balcony again, watching Denver's lights stretch across the skyline. Cars hummed in the distance. The wind brushed my hair gently across my cheek. For the first time since childhood, I felt something like ownership over my life. Not pride. Not victory. Agency. I wasn't sabotaging them. I was removing myself from a structure built on my exploitation. And as I breathed in the cold air, a realization settled over me like frost on steel. Roger thought disowning me would weaken me. But he had forgotten one crucial truth. I was the one holding everything together. And now I wasn't holding anything. Not anymore. 48 hours later, Deborah called in panic. The phone lit up with Deborah across the screen, vibrating so violently it nearly tipped off the counter. I didn't move. I finished pouring my coffee, inhaling the steam as if it could steady me. When I finally answered, I placed the call on speaker. Her voice hit the room like a siren. Lauren, what did you do? The mortgage payment bounced. The bank called your father. They said it was rejected. It's due today. Do you understand that? Fix it. Fix it right now. Not a question. Not concern. A demand. I took a slow sip. Roger asked me to direct everything through his lawyer, I said evenly. So that's what I'm doing. Silence on the line. And then a sharp inhale. What lawyer? Don't play games, Lauren. You're being unreasonable. I ended the call. 10 seconds later, the phone rang again. Then again. Then came a stream of texts, each one a blend of guilt, accusation, and desperation. Chad entered the battlefield next. Are you out of your mind? You're ruining Dad's life. Get that payment through today. Another text. You think being dramatic makes you powerful? You're pathetic. For years, those words would have gutted me. Now they felt small. Insignificant. Like raindrops on steel. By noon, the calls escalated from frantic to threatening. Deborah claimed they would take legal action. Chad said I'd be cut off forever. Roger sent nothing, not even a single line. The silence from him was almost louder than their chaos. But later that afternoon, everything shifted. My lawyer called. She had received a message from Roger's supposed legal representative, a stiffly written email accusing me of financial harassment and demanding I restore all payments immediately. She laughed. This isn't even a real claim, she said. It's pressure. Empty pressure. Good, I said, exhaling. Because I need your help with something else. I told her everything. About the years of payments. The video Uncle David accidentally sent. The way my family used me like a bank account. And then I told her something I'd never voiced aloud. There were always discrepancies in his community fund reports. I think Roger might be mismanaging money. Maybe worse. She grew still. Then we start digging. For the next week, every spare moment of my life became a quiet investigation. I worked through my professional notes, cross-checking dates and transactions against the community fund's publicly available filings. The more we compared, the more cracks appeared. Roger wasn't sloppy. He was siphoning money, and not small amounts. Significant, repeated withdrawals disguised under vague descriptions. Administrative costs. Community outreach. Emergency repairs. My lawyer connected with contacts she trusted, and soon the pattern was undeniable. But the unraveling didn't stop there. One night around 11, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. Something told me not to. A soft, trembling voice whispered into my ear. "Lauren? It's Grace. Your cousin." She sounded like she was hiding in a closet. "I saw the video," she said. "And I need to tell you what happened to me." My breath caught. She told me everything. How Roger once cornered her when she was 17. How she screamed. How Deborah dismissed it as a misunderstanding. How she'd been forced into silence for years. "I'm so sorry," Grace whispered. I didn't know who else to tell. I closed my eyes, the edges of my vision tightening. Roger wasn't just manipulative. Wasn't just financially abusive. He was dangerous. 2 days later, the final blow came from an unexpected person. Joyce, my mother's best friend. Her voice cracked with emotion as she said, "Your mother suffered, Lauren. She never told you how bad it was because she wanted to shield you. Roger controlled everything. Her money. Her choices. Her friends. He drained her piece by piece." Something old inside me splintered. This wasn't a dysfunctional family. It was a system built on one man's control. And I wasn't the next victim. I was the one breaking the pattern. The confrontation came on a quiet Thursday evening. The Denver sun was sinking, casting long gold shadows through my apartment window. When someone pounded on my door, 3 heavy knocks, I knew instantly. When I opened the door, Roger stood there. His face was gray, sunken, aged by panic. The confident posture he'd always wielded like a weapon was gone. His shoulders slumped. His hands trembled slightly at his sides. "Lauren," he rasped. "Please. They're talking about legal action. The fund, people are accusing me. There are rumors everywhere. Fix this. You can fix this. You're the auditor. Tell them it was a misunderstanding." His voice cracked on the last word. "You're my daughter," he added, almost begging. I let the silence fill the hallway until he shifted uncomfortably. Then I reached into my folder and handed him a single sheet of paper. His hands trembled as he read. When his eyes hit the list of flagged transactions and the summary of potential misconduct, his breath hitched. What is this?" "A summary," I said, "of what the investigators already know. And what more people will know soon." He looked up, panic flooding his features. "You did this." It wasn't a question. It was blame. "No," I said quietly. "You did." He shook his head, voice rising. "Lauren, please. I need your help. You owe me." I stepped back, letting the hallway light cut the distance between us. "I don't owe you anything," I said. "And you disowned me. Remember?" His face crumpled. "I didn't mean." "That's the problem," I said. "You never do." I closed the door before he could answer. The latch clicked softly, a gentle, final sound. And behind it, I heard Roger's breath hitch. A single, broken gasp. That was the moment his entire world collapsed. Not because I destroyed anything, but because I finally stopped holding it up. The fallout moved faster than even I expected. Within a week, the Community Fund Board launched an internal review. My lawyer forwarded them the summary of discrepancies, and from there, everything unraveled. Meetings were held. Statements were requested. Quiet questions turned into open accusations. Roger's name, once spoken with respect, became a warning. Chad tried to defend him online, but his posts only drew attention to the investigation. People questioned his motives. Screenshots circulated. His reputation cracked under the weight of his own entitlement. By the end of the month, the house in Glendale, his pride, my burden, was placed under foreclosure review. The payments I'd carried alone for 4 years had been the only thing keeping it alive. Without me, it collapsed instantly. Meanwhile, life in Denver shifted in ways I never saw coming. My boss pulled me aside after a major audit and offered me a promotion, saying she'd never seen someone handle personal pressure with such clarity. I walked out of her office with a title that finally reflected the work I'd been doing all along. I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand how I'd carried so much for so long without realizing I didn't have to. My therapist asked me once what I thought love looked like. I realized I'd spent my whole life confusing obligation with affection, guilt with connection. For the first time, I was learning the difference. I also reconnected with people I'd let fade away. College friends who'd stopped calling because I always seemed too busy helping my family. Coworkers who'd invited me to dinners I never attended because I was budgeting for someone else's mortgage. Slowly, carefully, I built something I'd never had before, a life that belonged only to me. One evening, standing on my balcony, I looked over the city lights and felt a quiet truth settle in. For the first time, peace wasn't something I had to pay for. I thought about that video sometimes. The laughter. The toast. The casual cruelty. But it didn't hurt anymore. It had become evidence, not of my worthlessness, but of their failure. They had mistaken my kindness for weakness. My loyalty for stupidity. My love for an endless resource they could drain without consequence. They were wrong. And now they knew it. A few months later, I got a letter from Roger's lawyer. Not a threat this time, a request. They wanted to settle quietly. No admission of guilt, no public record, just an agreement that I would refrain from further involvement in family matters. I read it twice, then handed it to my lawyer. "What do you want to do?" she asked. I thought about it. About the years I'd spent trying to earn a place in a family that saw me as a checkbook. About the mornings I'd woken up anxious, checking my account to make sure I had enough to cover their latest crisis. About the holidays where I smiled through condescension and mockery, convincing myself it was normal. "Let them settle," I said. "But I'm not signing anything that silences me." She smiled. Good. The settlement came through 3 weeks later. Roger agreed to repay a portion of what I'd given over the years, not all of it, but enough to make a statement. Chad stopped contacting me entirely. Deborah sent one final text, "I hope you're happy now." I deleted it without responding. Because the truth was, I was happy. Not because I'd destroyed them, but because I'd finally chosen myself. In the end, I learned something simple. Family isn't defined by blood, but by how you're treated. Walking away from the people who drain you isn't selfish, it's survival. And setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's freedom. If you've ever carried more than your share, or been expected to hold everything together alone, you're not wrong for finally putting it down. You're not dramatic. You're not ungrateful. You're just done. And that's okay. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about finding your strength when the people who should love you most treat you like you're expendable. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop holding up what was never yours to carry.